Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s Defiance, watching the stars through the main view screen. The ship was massive, over 3 kilometers long, and it carried the hopes of humanity into the dark void of space. Jake had been captain for 5 years now, and he had never seen anything like what was coming through the communication array. "Captain, we're getting a priority transmission from Earth Command," said Lieutenant Carol Davis from her position at the communication station. Her voice carried worry that she tried to hide. "It's marked as urgent." Jake nodded and walked to the center of the bridge. Around him, his crew worked at their stations. These were good people, all of them. They had volunteered to serve on the edge of human space, far from Earth and the safety of the inner systems. They knew the risks. "Put it through to my ready room," Jake said. "Commander Ryan Parker, you have the bridge." Jake walked into his private office and activated the secure communication screen. The face that appeared belonged to Admiral Lisa Carter, one of the most respected officers in the Earth Fleet. But today, she looked tired and worried. "Jake, we have a situation," Lisa said without wasting time on pleasantries. "The Galactic Council has made contact. They want to meet with us." Jake felt his stomach tighten. Every human in space knew about the Galactic Council. There were 12 alien species that controlled most of the galaxy. For 3 years, humans had been expanding into new star systems, and they had been running into Council territory. There had been small fights, ships destroyed, colonies attacked. But this was the first time the Council had actually wanted to talk. "What do they want?" Jake asked. "They're offering us a truce," Lisa said. "But Jake, you need to know the terms. They want us to give up all the new colonies. They want us to hand over our quantum drive technology. And they want us to become what they call a junior species in their alliance." Jake was quiet for a moment. He had been born on Mars in the early days of human expansion. He had grown up hearing stories of Earth, of how humans had fought for centuries to build their own destiny. The idea of giving that up to aliens made him sick. "What does Earth Command think?" he asked. "We're meeting on Luna Station in 2 days," Lisa said. "All the senior staff will be there. President Williams wants to hear all opinions before we make a decision. And if we say no?" Lisa's expression darkened. "Then we'll probably have a war on our hands." "Jake, these aren't just any aliens. The Council has been around for 50,000 years. They have technology we can't even understand. They have fleets that could destroy Earth in hours." Jake nodded slowly. "I'll be there." The transmission ended, and Jake sat alone in his ready room for a long time. Through the small window, he could see the stars. Out there, somewhere, were the aliens who wanted to control humanity's future. They thought humans would be grateful for their protection, happy to give up their freedom for safety. They were wrong. 2 days later, Jake stood in the main conference room of Luna Station. The room was filled with the most important people in human space. Admiral Lisa Carter sat at the head of the table, with President Williams appearing on screen from Earth. Around the table sat generals, admirals, scientists, and diplomats. All of them looked worried. "The Council delegation is already at Harmony Point," Lisa said. "That's the neutral space station they chose for the meeting. They're expecting our answer in 24 hours. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, the head of the Xenobiology department, stood up. She had been studying alien species for years, and she knew more about the Council than anyone else. "I've been analyzing their communication patterns," Amy said. "These aliens don't understand us at all. They think we're like other species they've encountered. Young, scared, desperate for protection. They believe we'll be grateful for their offer." "Maybe we should be," said General Kevin Brooks from his seat near the window. "Amy, you've seen their technology. Their smallest ships are bigger than our largest battleships. They have weapons that can destroy entire planets. How can we possibly fight them? Amy shook her head. General, you're missing the point. Yes, they're powerful. But they've been powerful for so long that they've become lazy. They don't expect resistance. They don't expect anyone to say no to them. Ambassador Paul Turner, who would be leading the human delegation, looked uncomfortable. Dr. Rodriguez, what exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we tell them exactly what we think of their offer, Amy said. We tell them that humans don't bow to anyone, not even aliens who think. They run the galaxy. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that would mean. If humans rejected the Council's offer, there would be war. And humanity might not survive. President Williams's voice came through the speakers. Dr. Rodriguez, you're talking about risking the entire human race. Are you really suggesting we should fight beings who could destroy us? Amy looked directly at the camera. Mr. President, I'm suggesting we act like humans. We've never backed down from a fight when our freedom was at stake. Why should we start now? Jake found himself nodding. He thought about his crew aboard the Defiance, about the colonists on the outer worlds, about the children growing up on Mars and the Moon. Did they want to live free, or did they want to live as pets to alien masters? The Council doesn't understand something about humans, Jake said, speaking for the first time. They think we're afraid of dying, but we're not. We're afraid of living without dignity. Admiral Carter looked around the room. All right, people. We have a decision to make. Do we accept the Council's offer and become junior partners in their alliance? Or do we reject it and face whatever comes next? The debate continued for hours. Some argued for accepting the truce, pointing out the obvious advantages of Council protection and technology. Others argued for rejection, saying that freedom was worth any price. Finally, President Williams called for a vote. It was close, but in the end, the decision was made. Humanity would reject the Council's offer. Ambassador Turner would deliver the message in person. He would stand before the most powerful beings in the galaxy and tell them that humans would not be conquered, would not be controlled, and would not surrender their freedom. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. They had never met a species that would choose war over submission. They were about to learn something new about the universe. They were about to meet humanity. Ambassador Paul Turner walked through the corridors of Harmony Point Station. The neutral space station was huge, built by the Council decades ago for meetings between different species. Paul had never seen anything like it. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft light, and the ceiling was so high he could barely see it. But Paul was not here to admire alien architecture. He carried with him the most important message in human history. In his briefcase was humanity's official response to the Council's offer. A response that would shock the galaxy. The main conference room was enormous. 12 different alien species sat around a table that seemed to float in the air. Paul had studied pictures of these beings, but seeing them in person was different. The Zephyrians looked like giant birds with 4 arms and golden feathers. The Mindari had large heads and no visible eyes, communicating through telepathy. The Krextai were covered in armor-like scales and carried weapons even to peaceful meetings. At the head of the table sat High Chancellor Vexthil of the Zephyrians. He was the leader of the Council, and he had ruled for over 300 years. His golden feathers rustled as he turned to look at Paul. Ambassador Turner, Vexthil said in perfect English, "We trust you bring good news from your people. The Council is prepared to welcome humanity into our alliance." Paul walked to the center of the room. Around him, the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy waited for his answer. They expected him to thank them, to express gratitude for their generous offer. They expected him to bow. Instead, Paul stood straight and opened his briefcase. "High Chancellor, Honored members of the Council, Paul began. I bring you the official response of the United Earth Government and all human colonies. He pulled out a document and began to read. After careful consideration, humanity formally rejects the terms of the proposed truce. We will not withdraw from any star systems currently occupied by human colonies. We will not surrender our quantum drive technology. We will not accept membership as a junior species in the Galactic Council. The room fell completely silent. Paul could hear his own heartbeat. Several of the alien representatives made sounds that he guessed were expressions of shock. The Mindari delegate, a being called Telvash, actually stood up from its chair. Furthermore, Paul continued, humanity declares its intention to continue expansion into unclaimed star systems. We will defend our colonies and our people against any aggression. We offer friendship to all peaceful species, but we will not be conquered or controlled. High Chancellor Vexthul's feathers turned from gold to deep red. Paul had read that this was a sign of anger in Zephyrians. The alien leader stood up, his 4 arms gesturing wildly. This is impossible, Vexthul said. No species has ever rejected Council protection. You are young, foolish. You do not understand the dangers of the galaxy. We understand perfectly, Paul replied. We understand that you want to control us. We understand that your protection comes with chains. And we understand that some things are worth fighting for. The Krextai delegate, a warrior named Thokron, slammed his clawed hand on the table. You speak of fighting? You have been in space for less than 500 years. We have ruled the galaxy for 50,000. Your entire species could be destroyed in a day. Paul looked directly at the alien warrior. Then you'll have to destroy us. Because we will not surrender. The Mindari delegate, Telvash, spoke without moving its mouth. Its voice came from speakers around the room. The humans' minds are closed to reason. They choose conflict over security. This is unprecedented. It is madness, added the Veltar representative, a creature that looked like a walking tree. In our trade networks, we have seen many species. All chose the wisdom of council membership. All chose life over death. Paul shook his head. You don't understand. We're not choosing death. We're choosing life. Real life, not existence as your servants. Meanwhile, back in human space, preparations were already underway. General Kevin Brooks stood in the war room at Mars Command, looking at star charts. His senior staff. He had been planning for this moment ever since the first contact with the Council. Admiral Karen Phillips, what's the status of the fleet? Kevin asked. Admiral Phillips was a tough woman who had earned her rank fighting pirates in the outer systems. She looked at the holographic display showing human ships throughout the galaxy. All ships are moving to predetermined positions, she said. We have the 3rd Fleet moving to defend the colonies at Kepler to 442. The 5th Fleet is protecting the mining stations at Wolf 359. The 1st Fleet is holding position near Earth. And the new ships? The U-East Ranger and her sister ships are ready for their first combat missions. Captain Ron Hughes has been training his crew for months. They're ready. Kevin nodded. The human fleet was smaller than the Council's, but it had advantages. Human ships were faster and more maneuverable. More importantly, human crews were motivated in a way that the Council couldn't understand. On the border world of New Denver, Mayor Beth Collins was holding a town meeting. The small colony had only 50,000 people, but every one of them was a volunteer. They had come to the edge of human space, looking for a new life. The Council ships had been spotted near the system, Beth told the crowd. Earth Command is offering to evacuate all civilians. A man in the back of the room stood up. What did you tell them? Beth smiled. I told them we're not going anywhere. This is our home. We built it with our own hands, and we're going to defend it." The crowd erupted in cheers. These were people who had left everything behind to build something new. They were not about to give up now. Back on Harmony Point, the council was still, trying to understand what had happened. High Chancellor Vextil called for a private meeting with his senior advisors. "How is this possible?" he asked. "Every species we have encountered has eventually seen the wisdom of joining the council. Even the Krextai, who love war, chose peace over destruction." Elder Quinder of the ethereal race spoke in a voice like wind through leaves. "These humans are different. They do not think like other species. They value something they call freedom, more than safety." Freedom. Vexthul repeated the word like it tasted bad. What is freedom compared to life? What is independence compared to security? To them, apparently everything, Quinder replied. The council now faced something they had never encountered before. A species that would rather die than surrender. A species that chose war over submission. They were about to learn that fighting humans was very different from fighting anyone else. Captain Ron Hughes stood on the bridge of the Hughes Ranger, watching the scanner display with growing concern. His ship was part of a small patrol group protecting the Kepler 442 system, where 3 human colonies had been established over the past 2 years. The colonies were small but growing, with families who had traveled from Earth to build new lives. "Captain, we're detecting multiple contacts approaching from the edge of the system," reported Lieutenant Commander Lisa Parker from her station. "Count as 12 ships, all of them big." Ron nodded grimly. This was what they had been expecting since Ambassador Turner delivered humanity's rejection to the Council. The aliens had wasted no time in sending their response. "What's our force?" "Strength?" Ron asked. "We have 6 ships in our patrol group," Lisa replied. "The Ranger, the U.E. Swift, the U.E. Hunter, the U.E. Guardian, the U.E. Falcon, and the U.E. Warrior. Captain Danny Foster is commanding the Swift." Ron looked at the tactical display. 6 human ships against 12 council vessels. The enemy ships were each 3 times larger than the biggest human ship. This should have been an easy victory for the council. But Ron Hughes was not planning to make it easy. "Open a channel to all ships," he ordered. "This is Captain Hughes. You all know what we're facing. The council thinks this will be quick and simple. They think we'll surrender as soon as we see their fleet. Let's show them how wrong they are." The council fleet was led by War Prime Thokron of the Krextai, the same warrior who had spoken so angrily at the meeting on Harmony Point. His flagship was a massive dreadnought called the Bloodclaw, armed with weapons that could destroy planets. Thokron stood in his command center, looking at the display showing the tiny human ships. He had fought in hundreds of battles across the galaxy, but this would hardly qualify as a battle. This would be an execution. "War Prime," his aide reported. "The human ships are moving to intercept us." Thokran laughed, a sound like grinding. "Metal. 6 small ships against 12 dreadnoughts. These humans are either very brave or very stupid. Should we offer them a chance to surrender?" "No," Thokran said. "The Council wants to make an example. These humans will be destroyed completely. Other species will see what happens when someone rejects Council protection." But as the 2 fleets approached each other, something unexpected happened. The human ships did not form a battle line like civilized species were supposed to do. Instead, they scattered in different directions, moving faster than the Council ships could follow. "What are they doing?" Thokren demanded. Before anyone could answer, the human ships began their attack. But they did not attack the way military textbooks said they should. Instead of trying to match the Council ships weapon for weapon, they used hit-and-run tactics that confused the aliens. Captain Danny Foster led the U.E.S. Swift in a high-speed run past the Council flagship. His ship was too small to do serious damage, but it was also too fast for the big alien weapons to track. The Swift fired its missiles and then disappeared behind a nearby asteroid before the Council ship could return fire dot at the same time. Captain Ron Hughes was leading the Ranger on a different approach. While the Council ships were turning to chase the Swift, the Ranger attacked from the opposite direction. The human ship fired everything it had at the engines of a Council cruiser, then used its superior speed to escape. "This is impossible," Thokran roared. "They fight like cowards, like pirates." "This is not honorable combat," his aide tried to explain. "War Prime, their ships are much faster than ours. They can attack and retreat before we can respond. Then we will destroy them all at once," Thokran decided. "All ships? Focus fire on the human flagship." But which ship was the flagship? The Council had no way of knowing. All the human ships looked similar, and they were all moving in different directions. Every time the Council tried to focus their fire, the humans had already moved. The battle continued for 2 hours. The Council ships were bigger and more heavily armed, but the humans were faster and more unpredictable. Slowly, the tide began to turn as the human ships worked together like a pack of wolves hunting much larger prey. Captain Jeff Morgan, commanding the U.S. Warrior, found himself in serious trouble. His ship had been hit by enemy fire and was losing power. The engines were failing, and the life support systems were damaged. "Captain," his first officer reported, "we're not going to make it. The ship is too damaged to escape." Jeff looked at the tactical display. The Council flagship was directly ahead, its massive guns preparing to finish off the Warrior. But Jeff saw something else. If he could get close enough, if he could ram the enemy ship, he might be able to damage it enough to help his friends. "All hands, prepare for impact," Jeff announced over the ship's communication system. "We're going to ram the flagship." The crew of the Warrior knew what this meant. They were going to die. But their sacrifice might save the colonies, might save the other human ships. Without hesitation, they strapped themselves in and waited. U.S. Warrior accelerated toward the Council flagship at full speed. Thokran saw the human ship coming and realized what was happening. "They're going to ram us," he shouted. "All weapons, fire at that ship." But it was too late. The Warrior crashed into the Blood Claw's side, exploding in a fireball that could be seen from the colonies below. The Council flagship was badly damaged, its main weapons destroyed. The remaining human ships used the confusion to press their attack. Working together, they managed to destroy 3 Council ships and damage several others. Faced with losses they had never expected, the Council fleet retreated. Captain Ron Hughes watched the alien ships disappear into hyperspace. The victory had come at a terrible cost. The U.S. Warrior and her entire crew were gone, including Jeff Morgan, who had been Ron's friend for 10 years, but they had won. 6 small human ships had defeated 12 Council dreadnoughts. More importantly, they had shown the galaxy that humans would not be easily conquered. News of the battle spread quickly through both human and Council space. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. In the colonies, families named their children after the crew of the Warrior. On the Council homeworld of Zentrix Prime, the ruling body convened an emergency session. For the first time in 50,000 years, a Council fleet had been defeated by a supposedly inferior species. Elder Quinder of the ethereal race spoke to the assembled representatives. "We have underestimated these humans. They do not fight like other species. They fight like they have nothing to lose." "Because they believe they have nothing to lose," replied Telvash of the Mindari. "They would rather die than surrender their freedom." High Chancellor Vexthul's feathers had turned completely black, a sign of deep worry in his species. "How do we fight an enemy that welcomes death?" None of the Council members had an answer. They were beginning to understand that this war would be unlike any they had ever fought. The war had been going on for 6 months now, and the Council was learning that fighting humans was nothing like fighting other species. Captain Rick Thompson piloted his scout ship through the dark space between stars, gathering intelligence on Council movements. His ship was small and fast, designed for stealth rather than combat. "Captain, I'm picking up a massive Council fleet near the Vega system," reported his navigator, Lieutenant Sam Brooks. "Looks like they're preparing for another major offensive." Rick studied the scanner readings. The Council had learned from their defeat at Kepler 442, and they were now sending much larger fleets to fight the humans. But they still did not understand how humans fought. "Send this data back to Earth Command," Rick ordered. "Admiral Mike Nelson needs to see this." Back at Mars Command, Admiral Nelson was studying reports from across human space. The war was not going as anyone had expected. The Council had superior technology and numbers, but humans were winning more battles than they were losing. "The key is adaptation," Admiral Nelson explained to his staff. "Every time the Council tries a new tactic, we learn from it and find a counter. They're too rigid, too set in their ways." Colonel Sandra Wright, who had become famous for her daring raids on Council supply lines, nodded in agreement. "Sir, I've been studying captured Council equipment. Their technology is impressive, but it's also predictable. They build everything the same way, following the same patterns they've used for thousands of years." "What are you thinking, Colonel?" Nelson asked. "I'm thinking we hit them where they don't expect it," Sandra replied. "Proxima Station. It's their main forward base in this sector. If we can capture it, we'll gain access to their military databases." The plan was dangerous. Proxima Station was heavily defended, surrounded by minefields and patrolled by Council warships. But Sandra had studied the station's defenses and found a weakness. "The Council builds their defenses to stop large fleets," she explained. "But they don't expect small groups of ships to attack. We go in fast, hit the station before they can respond, and get out with the data." 2 weeks later, Sandra led a strike force of 12 ships toward Proxima Station. Her flagship was the UES Lightning, a new type of ship designed specifically for this kind of mission. Fast, heavily armed, and equipped with the latest stealth technology. "All ships maintain radio silence," Sandra ordered as they approached the station. "We have one chance to do this right." The Council station was enormous, bigger than some human cities. It was shaped like a flower, with 6 arms extending from a central hub. Each arm was covered with weapons and defensive systems. In normal circumstances, attacking such a station would be suicide. But Sandra's ships were not approaching normally. They came in from above the station, using the blind spot created by the station's own design. The Council had never considered that anyone would attack from that angle. "All ships, begin the attack," Sandra commanded. The human ships dropped out of stealth mode directly above the station. Before the Council defenders could react, the humans had landed boarding parties on the station's hull. Sandra led the assault, herself cutting through the station's armor with plasma torches. Inside the station, the Council defenders were caught completely off guard. The Zephyrian commander, a being named Kexler, tried to organize a defense, but the humans were already inside his command center. "How did they get past our defenses?" Kexler demanded. "They came from above," his aide replied. "No one has ever attacked from above before." Sandra and her team fought their way through the station's corridors. The Council defenders were skilled warriors, but they were not prepared for the human way of fighting. The humans moved quickly, used the station's own layout against the defenders, and adapted to each new obstacle. "There," Sandra pointed to a heavily armored door. "That's the computer core. Get those charges ready." The human demolition expert, Sergeant Pete Wilson, placed explosive charges on the door. The explosion echoed through the station and the humans rushed inside. The computer core was a massive chamber filled with crystalline structures that stored the Council's military data. Sandra connected her portable computer to the main system and began downloading everything she could find. "Colonel, we've got company," reported Corporal Jane Miller from her position at the door. "Council security forces are moving this way." "How long do you need?" Sandra asked her computer expert. 5 more minutes," came the reply. "Then we hold for 5 minutes," Sandra decided. "Everyone, defensive positions." The battle for the computer core lasted exactly 5 minutes. The humans were outnumbered 3-1, but they held their ground. When the download was complete, they fought their way back to their ships and escaped before the Council could organize a proper response. The intelligence they captured changed everything. Dr. Peter Jackson, Earth's leading expert on alien technology, studied the data for weeks. What he found was shocking. "The Council species don't really work together," Peter reported to the military leadership. "They're an alliance of convenience, not a true union like humanity." "What do you mean?" asked General Kevin Brooks. "Each species has its own way of fighting, its own technology, its own goals," Peter explained. "The Mindari use telepathy to coordinate their forces, but that doesn't work with the Krextai, who rely on individual honor and courage. The Veltar are focused on profit and trade, so they don't want to risk their valuable ships. The Ethereals think everything through for years before making decisions." Admiral Nelson saw the opportunity immediately. "So they're not really 12 species working together. They're 12 species getting in each other's way." "Exactly," Peter confirmed. "And we can use that against them." The opportunity came at the Wolf 359 system, where the Council had assembled their largest fleet yet. Over 100 ships from all 12 species, commanded by a joint council of alien leaders. It should have been an unstoppable force. Admiral Nelson's human fleet was much smaller, only 30 ships. But Nelson had a plan based on the intelligence Sandra had captured. "The key is to make them fight each other instead of us," Nelson explained to his captains. "The Mindari ships will try to coordinate the battle using telepathy. But if we can disrupt their communications, the other species won't know what to do." The Battle of Wolf 359 lasted 8 hours. Nelson's fleet used every trick they had learned in 6 months of war. They separated the Council species, attacked their communication systems, and turned the aliens' own rigid tactics against them. When the Mindari coordination failed, the Krextai ships charged forward without support. The Veltar ships retreated to protect their investments. The Ethereals tried to analyze the situation instead of fighting. By the end of the battle, the Council fleet was in complete chaos. Admiral Nelson's smaller force had achieved total victory, capturing or destroying most of the enemy ships. News of the victory spread across the galaxy. For the first time in 50,000 years, a major Council fleet had been completely defeated. More importantly, the other species in the galaxy began to see that the Council was not invincible. On Earth, President Williams addressed the nation. "Today, we have proven that freedom is stronger than tyranny, that courage is stronger than fear. The Council thought they could control us, but they have learned that humans bow to no one." The war was far from over, but the balance of power had shifted. The Council was no longer the undisputed master of the galaxy. Humanity had earned its place among the stars through strength, courage, and the willingness to fight for what they believed in. The galaxy would never be the same. The Council was desperate. After 2 years of war, they had lost more battles than they had won in the previous 1,000 years. Their fleets were scattered, their allies were questioning their leadership, and worst of all, other species across the galaxy were beginning to rebel against Council rule. High Chancellor Vexthel stood in the secret vault beneath the Council's main building on Centrix Prime. Before him lay a weapon, that had not been used in 10,000 years. The planet killer was a massive device, capable of destroying entire worlds in minutes. "Are you certain this is the only way?" asked Elder Quinder of the Ethereals. Even his ancient wisdom was troubled by what they were planning. "The humans must be stopped," Vexthel replied. "They have shown the galaxy that the Council can be defeated. If we do not act now, our entire civilization will collapse." "But to destroy an entire world," Quinder said, 200 million innocent people." "They are not innocent," War Prime Thokron interrupted. "Every human is a warrior. Every human is our enemy. We will target New Terra, their richest colony. When they see their people dying, they will surrender." The decision was made. The planet killer was loaded onto the Council's largest ship and sent toward New Terra with an escort of 50 warships. It would be the final blow in the war against humanity. On New Terra, Governor Chris Baker received the warning from Earth Command with grim determination. The planet was home to 200 million people, including families who had lived there for 3 generations. They had built cities, farms, schools, and hospitals. It was truly a new world for humanity. "Sir, Earth Command is offering immediate evacuation," reported his aide, Major Kate Williams. "They can have transport ships here in 48 hours. Chris looked out the window of his office at the city below. Children were playing in the parks. People were going about their daily lives, unaware of the doom approaching their world. "What do you think, Kate?" Chris asked. "Should we run?" Kate was quiet for a moment. She had been born on New Terra, had grown up here. This was her home. "Sir, my grandmother came here from Earth 30 years ago. She said she came here so her children could live free. If we run now, what was the point?" Chris nodded. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them New Terra will not be evacuated. We'll fight." The news spread across the planet quickly. In every city, town, and farming community, people made the same choice. They would not abandon their home. If the Council wanted to destroy New Terra, they would have to fight for it. Teacher Mary Johnson was conducting her class when the announcement came. Her students were children between 8 and 12 years old. When she told them what was happening, one of them raised her hand. "Miss Johnson, are we going to die?" Mary looked at the young faces around her. These children had been born free, had never known what it was like to live under alien rule. She would not let them learn now. "No, sweetheart," Mary said. "We're going to fight, and we're going to win." Across the planet, people began preparing for the battle of their lives. Farmers turned their equipment into weapons. Factory workers built bombs and defensive systems. Even the children helped, carrying supplies and messages. Engineer Bill Carter worked day and night in the planet's main power facility. New Terra was powered by fusion reactors, massive machines that created energy by combining atoms. Bill had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. "If we overload all the reactors at the same time," he explained to Governor Baker, "we can create an energy pulse that might destroy the planet killer when it gets close enough." "What are the risks?" Baker asked. "If it works, we save the planet." Bill said, "If it doesn't work, we destroy ourselves instead of letting the Council do it." Baker thought about the choice: death on their own terms or death as victims. For humans, it was no choice at all. "Do it," he decided. When the Council fleet arrived at New Terra, they expected to find a defenseless world waiting for destruction. Instead, they found a planet transformed into a fortress. Every city had defensive weapons. Every citizen was. A soldier. Captain Tracy Adams led the small human fleet defending New Terra. She had only 12 ships against 50 Council vessels and the planet killer. The odds were impossible, but Tracy had learned something important during the war. Humans did not surrender, no matter what the odds. "All ships, begin the attack," Tracy ordered. "Make every shot count." The battle for New Terra was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The human defenders fought with a fury born of desperation. They were not just fighting for military victory. They were fighting for their homes, their families, their children. The Planet Killer moved slowly toward the planet, protected by its escort fleet. The massive weapon began charging its systems, preparing to destroy New Terra completely. But the humans had one more surprise. As the Planet Killer approached the planet, Bill Carter activated his plan. Every fusion reactor on New Terra overloaded at the same moment, creating an energy pulse that shot out into space. The pulse hit the Planet Killer just as it was preparing to fire. The ancient weapon systems overloaded and exploded, taking half the Council escort fleet with it. Bill Carter died in the explosion of the main reactor, but his sacrifice saved his world. The remaining Council ships, shocked by the destruction of their ultimate weapon, began to retreat. But Mary Johnson and a group of civilian volunteers had managed to board one of the damaged Council ships. Fighting with nothing but small weapons and courage, they captured the ship and turned its guns on the rest of the Council fleet. When the battle was over, New Terra still existed. The Planet Killer was destroyed, the Council fleet was scattered, and the galaxy had witnessed something impossible. An entire world had chosen to fight rather than surrender. The news of New Terra's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light. On 100 worlds, oppressed species rose up against Council rule. The alliance that had controlled the galaxy for 50,000 years began to collapse. On Zentrix Prime, Elder Quinder approached High Chancellor Vexthul with a new proposal. The Council had lost everything. Their fleets were gone. Their authority was broken. Their ultimate weapon was destroyed. "We must make peace," Quinder said. "Real peace, not the subjugation we offered before." "You mean surrender to these humans?" Vexthul asked bitterly. "I mean survival," Quinder replied. "We have learned that some species cannot be conquered. Perhaps it is time we learn to live with them as equals." 6 months later, Ambassador Paul Turner stood once again in the conference room at Harmony Point Station. But this time, he was not delivering a rejection. He was signing a treaty of mutual cooperation between humanity and the Galactic Council. The treaty recognized humanity as a full partner in galactic civilization. Human colonies would remain independent. Human technology would remain human property. And human representatives would have equal votes in the Council. High Chancellor Vexthul's feathers had returned to their natural gold color as he signed the document. "We have learned much from this war, Ambassador Turner. We have learned that freedom is not something that can be given or taken away. It must be earned." Paul nodded. "And we have learned that the galaxy is big enough for all of us, as long as we respect each other." The war was over. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through submission, but through strength. The Council had learned that true peace came from cooperation, not domination. In the shipyards orbiting Earth, human and alien engineers worked side by side, building ships that would explore new worlds together. The galaxy had changed forever, and it was a better place because humans had refused to bow.